Everybody, welcome. Good evening or good night. 8:30. I feel like that kind of disqualifies you
Yeah,
as saying good evening. But welcome to SOS Live. We appreciate you being here with us. Um, it's been a pretty busy last couple of weeks. I feel like
it
it's
has, man.
there's always so much going on, and like last time we did this, we talked about Iran and what was kind of going on in the Middle East. And I feel like since then, man, to be honest with you, I have no clue what's
Yeah,
I got no clue what's happening anymore,
yeah.
man. It's so hard
You
to
never know what to believe anymore. It's like
yeah.
there's new AI videos every day where I'm like, oh, they got us. Oh, no, no, they didn't. Oh, no,
Yeah, well, and you hear different things coming from the administration every single day,
right,
and then whatever they say, it's almost like the Iranians just say the opposite.
right.
Um, what is clear is that it doesn't seem like this conflict is necessarily winding down. I saw that in Israel today, I believe, one of their power plants got hit.
Oh, geez, I did
Yeah,
not see that.
and unless this was all fake news,
I don't
it
know.
was
Yeah,
claiming that half of Israel was, lacking power. I don't know. I hope we can come to some sort of peace agreement. Hopefully, we don't find ourselves with the same agreement that we had under
yeah,
President
that would be
Obama.
terrible.
It's like, what do we
Spend
do?
billions of dollars. Lose.
Yeah, and in the lives lost,
Yeah,
like the lives lost is what gets me. But um, I guess neither here nor there. We shall see what comes of that situation, my friend.
if they call us, we'll tell them how to fix it.
Yeah, yeah. But we'll go ahead and get started. I want to try to keep this to about an hour. My wife is out of town, and I have my daughter, and she did not take a nap at school today, and your mom's
Be fired up.
babysitting her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to try to keep this to an hour, but so we'll get right into it, folks. I've been engaging with a lot of people online, in person, about the Save America Act, what it does, what it doesn't do. And, for me, I just decided, okay, what is, out of all the things that are going on right now, what is the most important thing that I think I could focus on and help bring clarity to, out of everything else? And I think that there shouldn't be anything more important than the elections. The upcoming midterms are probably going to be the biggest. That's the biggest election of my lifetime for sure.
Yeah, it's a big
And
one.
no matter which side of the aisle you're on, there's a lot at stake there. And so I wanted to do a deep dive on the Save Act, and here's why. Um, for the past, I don't know how many months. I mean, really, the Save Act goes back, to 2025 even. And then we had the Save America Act, which was sort of a recreation of that got introduced in February of this year, passed by the House, almost party line vote, where it got kicked over to the Senate, and it's in the Senate. The Senate, I think, is looking at this, not knowing what they're going to do, because the president has demanded that before he sign any other legislation, the Save America Act has to be passed by Congress. The only issue there, as we were talking about, Josh, is in order to pass the Save America Act, Republicans have a pretty steep hill they're going to have to get over. Not just the talking filibuster, but it's going to require Democratic support, unless, of course, they decide they want to throw out the filibuster altogether,
Hmm.
which I think would be a pretty short-sighted move,
Yeah, I
and,
agree.
and probably come back to bite them. But I wanted to give folks who are watching, and guys, please, like, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer what questions we can. And I don't even want to make this really political. I just want to give people the facts, and whatever they choose to do with those facts, I'll leave that up to them. So
I was
let's
gonna
get,
say just because it doesn't just affect Democrat voters, it
no,
it affects
no.
everyone.
I mean,
You know,
what they're talking about doing is completely overhauling our election system, and I want to make sure that as we the people, as Americans, we fully understand what this means before we just go doing this, because it's more complex than what we're being led to believe. And I'm going to get into that. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, so one thing I want to highlight before I talk about anything else is the fact that the Save America Act is very much from Project 2025's playbook, right? I mean, this is something that almost verbatim, the original Save Act, which was one of the first bills introduced at the start of Trump's second term, aligns with those policy proposals put forth in Project 2025 almost to the T. Citizenship to vote. That is something that they were, the Heritage Foundation and those aligned with the Heritage Foundation have been pushing heavily. Okay. But the origins of this really go back to Trump's first term. And, you know, it all started kind of when he became obsessed over Hillary Clinton beating him in the popular vote. And back then, one of the things that he said was that, you know, if you deduct the millions of people that voted for her illegally, and that was sort of like the, you know, the drop of water in that bucket.
Yeah, the start,
right,
yeah.
where all of a sudden American elections we now have millions of non-citizens voting in our elections, which I think was news to a lot of people who have looked at the evidence on this. And look, and Josh, you know, like you've sent me stuff, I've watched it. It's not that I don't have questions about whether or not the elections can be strengthened. I think we all want secure elections. The question is this how we want to go about it?
Right.
Is the Save America Act the way we want to go about it? So you had that in 2017, and then you had in March of 2025 this executive order that essentially was attempting to aggrandize presidential control over various election matters, which was in that effort by the administration then, that was largely blocked by the courts. The DOJ comes back in May of that same year and demanded full unredacted voter rolls from states, and I believe at least 44 of those states, including the District of Columbia. Okay, that didn't happen. Now, what you did have is some states that were voluntarily, including Texas, voluntarily turning over access to their voter rolls. Governor Greg Abbott worked with the administration. They handed over.
So what would be the why wouldn't states want to give over their voter rolls? Like,
well, for a number of reasons, right?
Yeah.
First off, and I don't know if folks know this or not, but the information that's provided on a voter roll, right? And there's two different sets of voter rolls. You have the public-facing voter rolls, which, you know, by law we're supposed to have access to, which has very limited personal data on individuals. But then you have this master set of voter rolls that includes everything from your date of birth, your address, your social security number, your driver's license number, your full name. I mean, it's a pretty, there's a lot of information there. And so you maybe ask yourself, well, what can you do with that information? Well, if that information is all put into one database, say Save America Act passes, they want to put that information into the DHS database, into their SAVE system. You have to ask yourself then, what happens if our government all of a sudden decides that they want to monetize that list?
right.
Say there's a cyber attack and that in that database at DHS gets hacked. Who then has all of this information about us, including which party we're affiliated with? Now, if you're somebody who works in the private sector for some commercial company or whatever, you could do a lot with that.
Right.
You can learn behaviors. You can learn.
Not a possibility now too, though? You think? Or you
Oh,
think
I'm
it's
sure
less
it.
likely?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure it is. I mean, like we've. How many times have we been, you know, just on our phone doing whatever,
All the time.
and the next thing you know, it's like maybe we're talking about something really random, something like, man, like. You know, I've always wanted one of those like Roombas. Next thing you know, you get this ad
Yep.
for a Roomba that just pops up in your phone magically, right? Like data, there's a reason why companies are willing to pay so much for data, and it's because if you're able to combine it with all the other publicly available data that you have, you can make a lot of money marketing to people because you understand their behaviors, their purchasing habits, et cetera, et cetera. As Americans, I know we value privacy. I know that most of us are not operating under a false sense of how much privacy we have,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that we should want the government having more information about us just for the hell of it. And so, that's why the voter rolls are important. And we'll get into that because that is one of the biggest components of the Save America Act, that I want to highlight for people. Um, so, anyway, my point in giving the background, though, is because this has been an ongoing thing for a while, right? And now we're just to the point where we have the Save America Act, and that was passed by the House. Now we have that in the Senate. And for the folks that don't fully understand like what exactly the Save America Act does, I wanted to dive into that because the messaging that I've been hearing about this is focused solely on the citizenship component,
Mm-hmm.
proof of citizenship, right? Now, if you're a proponent of that, you're thinking, okay, well, of course we should only want citizens voting in our elections, as do I,
Yeah.
right? I think you're in the same boat with me,
Yeah,
Josh.
sure.
Like, of course we don't want non-citizens voting in our elections. If you're on the opposing side, if you're in opposition to this legislation, you're looking at this and saying, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's talk about some of these requirements here because this is going to impact specific groups of people. And women have been one of the groups of people that have been very loud about how this is going to impact them, especially those who have been married, whose name now does not reflect the name that is on their birth certificate.
Yeah.
But that right there has become the argument. And that's why I'm most concerned, because there are so many other aspects of this legislation that have nothing to do with that are more dangerous.
Yeah.
Way more dangerous,
Yeah.
way more nefarious.
Yeah.
And so I want to get into that. But first, let me give you a little bit of a background on the Save America Act. So we all know, right? The documents that can be used as proof of citizenship: a passport, certified birth certificate, a naturalization certificate or certificate of citizenship, a consular report of birth abroad for those people who are born overseas, government issued ID that explicitly shows citizenship. Now that one right there is really interesting because out of the 50 states in the United States, there are only 5 states that actually show proof of citizenship on your ID.
Right.
But I don't hear a lot of Republicans talking about that aspect of this.
Texas isn't one of them either, right? We're not.
No. Texas is not one of them.
Yeah.
So you have New York, Vermont, Michigan, Minnesota, and Washington State. Those are the only ones.
So everyone, if it passed, me, you, everyone probably watching this, you'd have to go and get whatever documents just to be able to vote.
Yeah. And assuming that you don't have one of the documents that can stand alone as proof of citizenship, then you have to combine that standalone proof of documentation with another form. So, for example, if say you only have your photo ID that does not prove citizenship, well, then you have to combine that with a passport, or that with a birth certificate, or that with a hospital birth record.
Yeah.
And for women especially, I mean, you can imagine how that kind of changes things for them. Now, it's very easy to say, well, it's simple to get those documents, right? In reality, it might be simple, but that is aside from the point. The women should not have to climb over other hills than men do,
Right.
because of legislation, because of we're talking about a constitutional right that we have as Americans. This is not a privilege we have.
Right.
The 15th Amendment guarantees us the right to vote. And that right is further reinforced by the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
And so the idea that all of a sudden women now would have to get over another hurdle or go out of their way to do more just so they can vote. I mean, look, women, black folk, we've been through this before, right? Not me personally, but there's a long history of voter suppression in the United States. And we've fought for decades to get to the point where all of us have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Now, the concern obviously becomes the non-citizens who are purportedly voting in our elections. Before I get to that, though, I want to keep on the same track of this Save America Act, because there's a component of this that I think And I don't hear a lot of, frustratingly enough, I don't hear any Democrats really talking about it. Everybody's just
Yeah,
focused.
you pointed it out to me. I'd never heard it anywhere.
Everybody's just focused
Yeah.
on the citizenship component and the vote, the proof of the voter ID, and I mean,
The Save America Act is ironically going to be the thing that's going to destroy America.
I don't, I don't really disagree with that, and here's
Yeah.
why. So, aside from the proof of citizenship, it adds a requirement that every state must send their voter rolls to the federal government. Now, what would the federal government be doing with our voter rolls? Now, mind you, we a lot of us were paying attention in Minneapolis where they had the immigration surge, and we had everything that happened there with Alex Peretti, Renee Good, and then all of a sudden, towards the end of the immigration surge, Pam Bondi comes in and she says, "Okay, we'll end the surge if you give us your voter rolls." And Josh, I want to pull up this letter real quick here, and look at that. I think it's the third from the last paragraph. Third, allow the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to access voter rolls to confirm that Minnesota's voters' registration practices comply with federal laws authorized by the Civil Rights Act. Now, what was happening in Minneapolis with the immigration surge have to do with voter rolls?
Nothing, as far as I knew. It's a
Right?
weird statement to make for sure.
It's a weird statement to make until you really start digging into why the administration would want these voter rolls. And one thing that I just want to highlight for people is that it's obvious why they want the voter rolls. One provision within the Save America Act that I specifically I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. And it blows my mind because if I were a Democrat, and surprise guys, I'm not a Democrat. I just have a lot of issues with what's going on within the administration.
We talk trash about Democrats all the time too.
Yeah, I mean, like the voter purges. All right. In other words, the federal government going through right now. This is something that the states have been doing. Now, if the Save America Act were to pass, that authority would be transferred over to the federal government, and the federal government would be in charge of sifting through the voter rolls, where we keep all of our personal data in terms of who is an eligible voter, and they can purge whoever they want. The Save America Act, in the Senate, if it were to pass, allows for a 30-day.
Would they be
rolling
able to purge like confirmed American citizens?
It's already happened. It's happened every time they do voter purges. This is what happens.
Is that by mistake or like purposefully? Do you think?
I think you have to ask the people in charge of the voting purge.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was a classic case in Virginia where the state ended up purging, I want to say it was like 13,000 voters incorrectly. The district court stepped in and said, no, you have to put them back on the voter rolls. That was upheld by the appeals court in the state of Virginia. And then the Supreme Court stepped in and on a, not to say party line, but a 6-3 decision, conservatives, liberals on the Supreme Court overruled that and said, move forward with the purge. And this was just 6 days before the election. Now, Josh, you and I have talked about this. The main concern that I have with the Save America Act is not the voter ID component of this. It's the purging component of this, which is why the administration has spent so much time going after voter rolls. Now, some states have already handed them over. I believe 13 states have already handed over their voter rolls. The other states have been sued by the administration in an attempt to gain access to those voter rolls. Most of those attempts have been blocked by courts. Now, if I'm the administration, and I want people to just be let's just be honest here for a second, okay? It does not appear to me that a lot of the actions by the administration are being made with the midterms in mind. I've even heard Republicans say, what are we doing? This is not, what we're doing is not popular. This war in Iran is not popular. This is going to impact us in the...
It confounds me. I'm like, it seems like they're trying to lose.
Well, it seems like they don't care.
Yeah,
At a bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
And I have to assume it's because they don't care, really. Because if the Save America Act were to pass, they could purge anybody that they wanted to. And they can do this on a rolling period every 30 days. Now, federal law, the Voter Registration Act, as it stands right now, allows for what they call a 90-day quiet period, meaning you can't purge anybody within that 90-day period right now.
Yes. Yeah.
The Save America
90
Act,
days leading up to an election.
leading up to an election. Yes, thank you for that clarification. Now, the Save America Act changes that. And what it does is allows for this 30-day rolling period where every 30 days they can purge voters. And there is absolutely nothing to stop them from purging people within the window, which typically is 30 days leading up to the election. So let me back up because I think that's a little unclear. If I'm going to register to vote in most states, not every state, but most states, and it differs by state, but there's a period after which you cannot register to vote if you want to vote in that election, right? And in most states, that period is somewhere between 30 to 15 days before the election. But let's just say 30 in this case. So 30 days before the election, right now, if I want to go and register to vote, I can do that. Now at 29 days, I'm out of luck, unless I, have a provisional ballot of some sort, and then we'll get into that. But as it stands right now, like a big problem is, and the concern that a lot of people have, is that if the federal government gets what it wants in the Save America Act, they can purge voters whenever they want leading up to the election, leaving them with little to no time to be able to register to vote and still be able to vote in that election.
Yeah.
Now, that's a big problem for me. And, I want people to just be honest about it, because you hear the president make statements like this, for example. The president said, if we pass the Save America Act, Republicans won't lose another election for 50 years. What does that mean to you, Josh?
That, to me, I think that means that he believes, or maybe people in his cabinet believe, that there are so many illegals voting that we just can't pinpoint that if they're not voting, then no Democrat's going to win. That's what I think it means. Now, if I put on my tinfoil conspiracy hat, which isn't real far off with the way things go these days, then that tells me that, you can see the more sinister side of it. It's like, we'll be able to control who can and can't vote for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And I think that's the bigger concern here.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of other concerns too, but you brought up something interesting, which is the president's claim that we have all of these non-citizens voting in our elections. Okay? The Heritage Foundation, the author of Project 2025, in their database of analysis that they've performed on election fraud, Josh, I want you to guess, from 1999 to 2023, how many instances of voter fraud do you think they found? This is the Heritage Foundation.
Well, I've seen it, but let me think. I don't know.
77.
Yeah.
77 instances between 1999 and 2023.
Right.
Okay? The Brennan Center analyzed 42 different jurisdictions covering 23.5 million votes in the 2016 election. And out of that, they found 30 cases. 30 cases that got flagged as potential non-citizens voting.
Yeah.
Now, flagged for potential non-citizens voting doesn't mean that that's non-citizens that actually voted.
Yeah.
That number was even smaller. So what we're talking about is overhauling our election system on the theory that there are millions of illegal aliens or undocumented immigrants or non-citizens, whatever verbiage you want to use, voting in our elections, when all the data shows the actual number of non-citizens voting in our elections is 0.0001%. 0.01%.
Right. And I will say it's like that's to me, and I get like I 100% believe that's not like that's a real statistic, and they actually did the research and everything. But it almost seems unbelievable to me that few of illegal immigrants that are in this country vote, especially with I think it was from when Biden was basically opened the border. They let countless people across, but they had that I can look up the name, it's in here somewhere, that program where they gave out social security numbers to almost 4 million illegal immigrants. And so it would make it almost virtually impossible to distinguish between a legitimate like US citizen and somebody illegal who got one of those social security numbers after crossing the border illegally through that program. There was almost, I can look up let me see.
While you're looking that up, I had a question for you.
Oh, there it is right there. Yeah.
And where did you find that?
So Doge released it back in the beginning years that, they found but so the numbers show that in 2021, 270,000 illegal immigrants got social security numbers. In 2020, 590K, 2023, 964K, and then in 2024, 2.1 million got social security numbers.
Now let me ask you a question. How much money did Doge save us?
Who knows? I didn't see
because
any of
they
it.
told. Well,
Yeah.
my point is that Doge was a political machine.
Yeah.
Right. Like Doge was. It's not like Doge had a bipartisan mandate when they went into the federal government. I would be interested to know where Doge got those. Like, I want Doge to tell the American people where they got those numbers from.
Right.
Because Doge was supposed to also save us $2 trillion, and we ended up with a fraction of that actually being.
So it was the Enumeration Beyond Entry program, the EBE program. It was the DHS something. It's Social Security number and state driver's license available to non-citizens in many states.
Well, and then I have to ask you this question too, right?
So like almost nearly 4 million, but
so if the Social Security number is a way for people to prove citizenship, why is Social Security number not anywhere on the list of documents by the Save America Act that can prove citizenship?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that with a Social Security number alone you can prove citizenship.
Well, but they were getting state driver's licenses at the same time. So
in state but even then, under this strict standard under the Save America Act, a driver's license and a Social Security number aren't the combination of things that you can have to prove citizenship.
Yeah.
And so,
But that's what I'm getting at. That would basically make them no longer able to vote. But I mean, that being said, I couldn't find a number as to how many of these, and it may not be available, how many of these 4 million people from 2021 to 2024 actually voted. I couldn't find that.
Sure.
So,
we talked about this a little bit. We talked about this. Right now in America, you have people. I know a guy personally, who's from Ecuador, who left the United States. He essentially self-deported.
Yeah.
Right. Because the administration has been laser focused on deporting as many people as they can.
Right.
And so the question comes into play, right? Because right now it's already federal law that a U.S. citizen, or if you're a non-citizen, you cannot vote in U.S. elections. Now, is that to say that it's foolproof? Well, no. All the data I've been able to find, though, suggests that number is it's a very small number. But let's say you're an undocumented immigrant. You come to the United States. God knows what you've risked to get here just to be in the United States. Logic tells me that you're not going to risk all of that to be fined, imprisoned, and deported.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we say under Trump, but I question the numbers that Doge puts out.
Yeah.
Because Doge was created by this administration.
Right.
Right. I would be interested to know if anybody else, and I don't know this. I'd be interested to know if anybody else shares those numbers, or if Doge was the only person that happened to find these numbers.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But one of the things that I want to make sure that we're thinking about is all I can do is go off the data that exists for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is data that's been supplied over decades. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not trying to completely discredit Doge, but I've seen some of the interviews of these Doge employees, and there wasn't a real rationale as to how they did away with programs other than
You're telling me Big Balls didn't do it a good job? Do you remember that?
I remember Big Balls. Yeah, yeah. That's the kid that got beat up.
Yeah.
And then that was like
He
that was
worked for
kind of
Doge. That was
kind
his
of
handle or whatever.
yeah, yeah. That was like the trigger for like the National Guard even going into DC, I think.
Really? Was
Yeah,
it?
like after that happened, that's when I think the president decided he wanted to put the National Guard in DC.
Yeah.
But look, here's some other interesting information that I found on a state level. So we're gonna kind of move down now to the state level from the.
Why would they risk being deported for a vote?
Look, like, and I've asked people this question, right?
Yeah. Well, here's a rebuttal to that. I just thought of this. Why would they risk being deported for drinking and driving? Why would they risk being deported for speeding? Why would like they
mm-hmm.
to think like, oh, they're not above like risking it to commit a crime essentially. I mean,
drinking. I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. It's hard. There's a lot of Americans that will drink and drive.
Yeah.
And not go vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have enough trouble getting Americans to go vote.
And that's one point I was going to try and make throughout this is like, all this is like, it negates like the illegals voting. It negated if all Americans just went out and voted. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just like, we would be able to.
Sure. But still, that's insinuating that there is a problem that exists.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's say the problem is your only night. Let's say it was 100,000. Which is thousands of times worse than what the evidence shows.
Sure.
If people just went out and voted, exercised their right that they're afforded, like it wouldn't be a problem anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. Now, I would say it doesn't seem to me like it is a problem anyway.
Yeah.
But I get your point, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. Like, more people need to make sure that they're getting out and actually exercising their rights to vote. And like, I remember whenever I was in college, I had this philosophy that a lot of people have, I think, which is, what difference does it make?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, how many times have you probably heard that? What difference does it make?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like between all the money being poured into the system, and what seems like politicians doing whatever they want to do, what difference does it make? That was a very naive mindset that I used to have, which led me, and it was that combined with this idea also that the vote is important. Why do I want to just give it to somebody who I don't really believe in? Like,
right.
Like, I just go and vote because that's something I do, choosing the lesser of the two evils. Now, what I will say is that was a naive mindset that I had, right? But a lot of people do have that mindset. And at the end of the day, what we know is that if voting wasn't important, there wouldn't be so many people that have died for the right to do it. And so many people who have been working still to this day so hard to oppress that right.
Yeah.
Take that right from people.
So, I mean, voting is
it's important.
Extremely important to democracy.
I mean, that's what, I mean, it relies on it.
Yeah.
It relies on it. But listen to this, Josh. And this was just in 2024 in the general election in the state of Iowa, state level. 1.6 million votes cast. Out of that 1.6, 35 non-citizens. And there's multiple examples of this. Even in the state of Utah, where Senator Mike Lee, the author of, or at least the sponsor of the SAVE Act in the Senate, where he's from, where they did an extensive audit, and they found the same thing. No, hardly any instances of non-citizens voting. So if Doge is right, which I have personally little reason to trust what Doge says, because the number that they were supposed to save us was a fraction of what they actually saved.
I was waiting on that check.
Well, man. I think a lot of people were, I mean, a lot of people still waiting on that tariff check too.
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't forgot about that. But if we're gonna overhaul the elections, gosh, I just have to see the proof.
Yeah.
But to act like this bill is simply show up with your ID and vote, I hear a lot of Republican members of Congress saying that, and that's just disingenuous. That's not
Yeah.
that's not what this bill does. Another major issue that I have with this bill is the burden that it puts on election workers. Essentially, if you're an election worker and say you register someone to vote unintentionally or intentionally who shouldn't have been voting, but let's say for in this example, they maybe they don't have the right paperwork. You help them register to vote, but it turns out they are an eligible voter anyway. You still can be fined or imprisoned.
Oh wow, the election worker can.
Yes.
That's kind of wild.
Yes.
Well, that's just going to keep people like any type of question at all. They're going to.
I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
these people are like volunteers a lot of times. Like, who would want to do that?
Right.
Now, on top of that, it puts the onus on them out of nowhere to be able to distinguish between fraudulent and real copies of birth certificates, passport. Now, a passport is probably a lot more difficult to, it's probably a lot more difficult to come by a fraudulent passport than a birth certificate.
Okay, if that's the truth, then why are you afraid to have to show your ID in order to vote? See, the truth is illegals are voting or probably not illegals. Illegals are voting or probably not illegals. Probably people hired to push ballots, and that's why they want to have drop-off boxes and mail-in ballots for all.
Yeah, William Sellers, cite your sources, man.
I mean, I get like his line of thinking. It's like, and that's what like I was kind of saying earlier. Like, it just seems unbelievable that the number's that small. But those are the numbers, as far as
look,
like what we
Kash,
have.
Kash Patel was in a hearing.
Yeah.
In a hearing, he got asked this question: how many ongoing cases of voter fraud are you actively investigating?
Yeah.
And like he couldn't give a number.
Mhm.
Like, and so the member of Congress that was, asking him this question, she was like, is the number 10, 20? And he was like, I don't know. I got to get back to you.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know if he ever gets back to her.
Yeah.
But I could almost guarantee you he won't because the numbers aren't there.
Yeah.
Now, again, I appreciate the question, William. I'm a big cite your sources kind of guy. Like I would be interested to know like where you're getting some of this information from. I don't think people are afraid to show their ID to vote. Again, that's not what the SAVE Act though requires. It's not simply about showing your ID. It's about showing a proof of citizenship that a lot of people right now don't have. And Josh, we were talking about this because the fact of the matter is all the numbers suggest that the citizenship portion of this alone would impact Republicans more than it would impact Democrats.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want to pull up a chart here. Let's see. Josh, you mind putting this on the screen for me? So this right here is passports by state. Okay. Now you can kind of see in this graph, there's a legend down here at the bottom. The bottom 20% of states that have passports. Look where they are. Just look at where they are. It's not up here. It's all down here in the South.
So the people who are going to have it the easiest are the people.
Yes, and there's a direct correlation.
The Democratic states. Yeah.
There are more Democrats. To keep it simple, there are more Democrats with passports than there are Republicans with passports.
Yeah.
Right? So all I'm simply saying is kind of like whenever we did this whole redistricting fight in Texas, that completely backfired on Republicans. If it were only about the citizenship portion of this, I don't think they would be pushing it as hard because all the data suggests that this would probably impact Republicans more than Democrats. Think about the if you just had to guess the majority of women who are getting married and changing their last name, do you think they're primarily Democrats or Republicans?
Republican,
right?
Sure.
That's a traditional thing.
Yeah.
You get married, you take the husband's last name.
So what do you say about Georgia right now? Going on in Georgia.
It is what the SAVE Act requires. It wants you to be an American citizen to vote. It's a right to vote as a citizen, not an. I'm not sure I understand the question, Mr. Sellers. I assume, are you talking about in Georgia? Are you specifically talking about the election hub raid? Is that what you're referencing?
Anyway, I cut
Um,
you off. If you remember where you were at while he types.
uh, and all I'm saying is that if this bill alone was focused on the citizenship component, to be honest, I don't know that you would have Democrats that are really that opposed to it.
Right,
I mean,
right.
this is uh, okay. Let's see here. So you just in Georgia, for instance, they have a discrepancy of over 300,000. Again,
Can you
if
post a link to that for
yeah,
us?
if you don't mind
We'll
citing
click it and put it up.
yeah, cite your source on that. I'd be more than happy to take a look at it, Mr. Sellers. Um, but we're big about you know obviously one of the bigger problems that we have right now is misinformation. We just want to make sure that any information that you're putting out there, that it's at
Well,
least got some credibility to it. And
yeah. So, Mr. Sellers, I have done what you've done. I like go try and find
Mhm.
like where things are messed up at, and I find small ones. Right. Like
Yeah.
I found a story of a lady in California who registered her dog to vote and was actually able to vote in his name, and
Mhm.
like little things like that. I can't find where there's hundreds of thousands or even
Yeah.
hundreds.
Well,
You
and keep
know,
keep in
so
mind, like the down in Georgia in Fulton County, where to back it up, this was where the administration went. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard was down there when they raided that election hub in Fulton County, Georgia, and they took tabulators, they took voter. I mean, they took a lot of stuff. Well, there was a search warrant that was issued in order for them to be able to raid that. Well, there was a judge that wanted to take a little bit closer of a look at that search warrant. And this is pretty recent, I think. And Josh, we can maybe even look something up on this. The judge that required the administration to put out and make public the uh, the information that they were relying on that led to this search warrant being issued, and it was absolute nonsense to the point to where the judge that required them to make this public, I believe, criticized him pretty heavily. Um, so, Josh, while you look that up, but look, Mr. Sellers, I think the bigger problem here that we're having is, and I don't know if you joined us late or not, but I think the bigger problem that we're having here again is with the voter rolls and the voter purges. All the evidence that exists out there right now. Josh, you mind switching the screen?
oh yeah, sorry.
All the evidence that exists out there right now suggests that every time there is a voter purge, it is always eligible citizens that are the ones that are primarily impacted by that. Now, again, if this bill is only about securing the election, the question I would pose to you, sir, is then why does the president see this as legislation that would result in the Republicans not losing another election for 50 years? Answer me that, and because there's no evidence to suggest non-citizens are voting in the numbers
Come on.
that uh, would in any way lead to Republicans, if they couldn't vote, if they were voting, doing away with that would lead to Republicans winning the next 50 years worth of elections. Um, but again, the burdens on election officials is another just issue with this as well. Now, the bill does mandate or set aside funds, I believe, like billions of dollars for training.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is that looks like a Guardian article.
Yes, the Guardian.
Yeah. So Josh, you mind just kind of reading the first like couple paragraphs?
Yeah. Lawyers arguing in federal court for the FBI to return Fulton County's 2020 election records said the agency's affidavit to obtain a search warrant relied on misrepresentations that rise to the legal standards of a callous disregard for the county's rights. The only element that turns the election into a crime is intent, and nothing in the affidavit shows intent, Abby Lowell, who is representing Fulton County, said during the Friday hearing at the blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, they trumped up a way to make a
Yeah.
get a
Well, and
search
it's
warrant.
important to note that the person that was leading the charge with that Fulton County raid that went through all the effort to get the search warrant was one of the 2020 election deniers.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, look, if there was something there, I would be the first to say, yeah, let's deal with that.
Yeah.
But every single time, I mean, the president's own attorney who was tasked with looking into the 2020 election said himself that there was no wrongdoing. Now, I mean, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do with that? There have been extensive investigations and audits, and not one of them have been able to withstand scrutiny in court.
Right.
Not one. So
because all the imported voters that the Democrats would have be gone because they're not legal citizens. And tell me, why is it that the Democrats do not want ICE
okay,
at
look,
polling locations? Citizens are voting.
That's a good question, and that actually brings up an interesting point. But I will say this: I think the reason why people don't want ICE at voting places is the same reason that a lot of people don't want ICE within airports.
Right.
Like, what are they going to be doing at voting places? If you mean to tell me that, okay, let's play this out, right? Let's say I'm an undocumented immigrant, right? I'm here in the country illegally. Do you really think that I'm going to show up on election day to a polling location knowing that there might be ICE there?
Not now.
To illegally cast a ballot.
Yeah.
While also possibly getting arrested, detained, and then deported by ICE.
Yeah.
It's just not logical. Like,
yeah,
not
definitely
logical.
not going to happen in this environment for sure.
Well, yeah. And I mean,
here's the deal, Mr. Sellers. I am with you, right? Like, ICE doesn't make me nervous. He looks like a white guy. I'm a white guy. ICE doesn't make me nervous.
It shouldn't make you I get
Getting
that.
pulled over by a cop doesn't make me nervous either.
Yeah.
Doesn't at all. You know? And I think I'm a Republican, by the way, just so you know. I don't think that I can truly speak to how it may affect others, because I've really throughout my life I remember I've gotten out of 6 tickets in a row, with cops, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just to me, it's just, I get other people's experiences are different, but me as a white guy, it doesn't bother me at all. So I can see why, Mr. Sellers might think, what's the big deal? Because I think that too.
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard, what's the big deal? And I thought about it, well, I am white. Maybe that's different. I'm not nervous at all around cops. You know what I'm saying? So, or I'll
tell you,
I'm not nervous. You know?
Yeah. I think the question becomes, why? I always ask this question because I think it's important. Instead of why do we not want ICE at polling places, I think the better question is, why do you want ICE at polling places?
Yeah.
What does that do? Now,
scares away illegal votes.
Well, I think it scares away. Again, there's not very much evidence to suggest that people are voting illegally anyway. And again, Mr. Sellers,
I agree with that. We're all Americans. I hope. I just think
but that's a little bit naive. Okay, so look, that's naive.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, and you can ask this question to most black people, and they'll tell you the same thing. We all are given a training, instruction of sorts.
That's
on what you do when you get pulled over by a police officer.
Yeah.
Because as much as we just like to think that there's not, and I'm not saying every officer is, out to just bust head. I know that's not true. A good friend of mine is a police officer, a damn good one. But there are conversations that have had to been had in the black community that the white community, y'all don't ever have to consider that.
Mm-hmm.
You never have to have those conversations.
Right.
It's just a reality. That's like saying we're all Americans, so why does racism exist? It's just a reality.
Right.
And, and it's becoming more of a reality in this given moment. I certainly see it. I know some people might not, but the rhetoric and the brazenness, the comfortability that people feel saying some of the things that they're saying, it's a little bit outrageous. I want to keep moving though, because it's important that we get
We're
through
extending the podcast, the live stream, we always do unintentionally.
But here's the thing about the ICE at polling places that I just want to highlight real quick. Federal law restricts Okay, this is current law. The deployment of federal troops or armed law enforcement officers to polling places. And it specifically prohibits military from interfering in elections in any way.
Yeah.
The thing with ICE, and I think this is going to become a battle more for the courts, honestly. ICE exists in one of these weird middle ground areas where it's unclear whether or not ICE can be at voting places because there's nothing in statute that explicitly restricts them
Yeah.
from being in voting locations, right? So I just wanted to point that out. One other thing though that I wanted to highlight about the Save America Act that isn't being discussed. Back when I was working for the congressman that I worked for in Congress, um, obviously it operated much differently than it's operating now, right? It was very much still an independent, co-equal branch of government that legislated. But back then, if you wanted to pass a bill that had spending involved in it, for example, the Save America Act sets aside, millions and millions of dollars for training, for redoing voter forms, and all sorts of stuff. Training in terms of the election workers. But there's nothing that in this bill it authorizes new spending, but there's no offsets. Offset meaning, okay, if we're usually in Congress, if you're going to increase spending over here, you got to decrease spending over here.
Because that bill not being passed when the budget was passed isn't a part of the budget, essentially, right?
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. It doesn't have to be passed as part of the budget to still have offsets.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, offset. You can have. I mean, you should have offsets with any legislation. And as a Republican, former Republican, like that's one of those things that we should all want to see, right? Like offsets. It's a way to keep spending down, so we're not just running up the debt. Now, also, I will say, I'm interested to know what I don't understand, Josh, is why conservatives are big government now.
Yeah.
That's what
agree with that.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't get that. Like conservatives not long ago used to be the party of states' rights.
Yeah.
Now it's the party of let the president do what he wants. I mean, shoot, like and I don't want to get too off base here, but like we're talking about, you know, we can keep calling it special operations all we want. What's going on in Iran,
Yeah.
guys? We're at war.
Right.
let's
right.
just call a spade a spade. We are at war, and this was a war that the president had said he was going to get us out of.
Right.
We were done with these kinds of wars in the Middle East. I just don't understand how the party that was once fiscal conservatives, small government, states' rights, pro constitution, is now the party that's allowing all these abuses to happen
Yeah.
without even asking a single question about it.
Man, times have changed so much. I watched some videos of Obama and Clinton and back in the old era of Democrats, and I'm like, I'd have probably been a Democrat back then.
Man,
Things have
changed a lot. Yeah.
It's just the parties are not the same. They're
It's
totally different.
they're whacked out. Each
Yeah.
party's just whacked out. Like both, like the way I describe it is, it's like you look to your left and you see a drunk. You look to your right and there's a drunk. It's just like everybody's drunk.
Yeah.
One's leaning this way, the other's leaning that way, and what happened to being the sober person standing up right in the middle?
Right.
What happened to that? Now if you're that person, you're a liberal.
Right. Right.
Right? Like it's times have changed. But look, folks, the reason why I wanted to do this was that because the SAVE Act, as it's being portrayed, is not just about voter ID or proof of citizenship. The voter rolls are important. And the question that I would have for Republicans that are really wanting this to happen, saying that we have to secure our elections, I mean, show me the proof. Guys, matter of fact, I'll do you one better. I want you to come on this live stream and come have a conversation with me. Anybody that is out there that wants to come to defend their stance as to why the SAVE Act is not about protecting Republicans ahead of the midterms, like even Lisa Murkowski in the Senate, the one Democrat that voted against the SAVE Act, or has, at least said that she'll vote against the SAVE Act because it's obvious this is about protecting the president ahead of the midterms. Come make your case, but you gotta bring me proof, guy. Like I can't operate in a world in which it's just hearsay stuff without even being able to cite a single credible source.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So again, I will extend the invitation to anybody out there who wants to come argue the necessity of the Save America Act. Come on, come do it. Come have that conversation with me. I want to have that conversation with you. I really do.
Sit right here underneath us.
Yeah.
We got it set up.
And that's the thing, right? You don't even have to come in person. You can get on your phone. We can I'm like technologically an idiot, so Josh will have to figure all this out. But
just send you a link.
Yeah, but we can get you in here. Come make your case. And we can do this on any subject you want. We could talk about Iran. We could talk about the Save Act. We could talk about.
You can argue with me. You can argue with him. Whoever.
We can. Well, I want it to be a conversation because in this moment in particular, the one thing that is most important to me is that, and we say this nearly every time we do this, that we're able to have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
As far as anything I've said today about the Save Act, anybody that has any questions, let me know. Just to remind everybody, DHS is still going through a shutdown. The Senate, now they pretty much have agreed with the Democrats in the Senate that we're going to pass a funding bill that does not include ICE and CBP. It will include TSA, it will include FEMA, it will include Coast Guard, and every other agency within DHS. They passed that bill and then they got out of town.
Yeah.
And apparently TMZ's tracking him. They tracked Lindsey Graham to Disney World.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I don't know. That dude, I don't know about him. There was a member of Congress from, I want to say Montana, or not a member of Congress, but a candidate who's running right now. And they said, if I get elected, the first thing I'm going to do is propose legislation to draft Lindsey Graham.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. What were we talking about, Josh?
Coming on the podcast.
Coming on the podcast, yeah. Open invitation to anybody who, thinks we're getting something wrong here. I want to have a conversation with you. I really do. Come talk to us. But just to summarize real quick, the Save America Act is bigger, and Democrats are doing such a bad job at highlighting that this is so much more than just proof of citizenship. That's not even the most sinister part of this. That's not even but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Tomorrow I'm having a conversation with a couple people who are working intimately on this issue, because here's what I've decided. It's no secret at this point that I do not like Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You can say I have TDS. I don't care. If you mean to tell me that, and I'll extend this invitation to folks too. If Trump was just a normal person with the same behavior, would you actually like hanging out with him? I think not. Would you, Josh? I could see you actually punching him.
Yeah.
I could see you actually getting in a fight with him.
Hey, don't give away my secrets.
Look,
Bill Maher, did you know? So Bill Maher got invited by Donald Trump to the White House to a dinner. Mm-hmm. And Bill Maher said, "It's crazy." People were so mad at him for saying it. He goes, "It's crazy." He's like, "He's a really nice guy, and I enjoyed hanging out with him." Mm-hmm. He's like, "I thought I was going to hate him the entire time. I thought I was going to see." He goes, I don't know if he was putting on an act for me or if he puts on an act for the American people. And that's what he was getting at is he's obviously like you're different when you're not out in the public sphere.
Yeah.
And it's like people got so mad at him for it because they're like, oh, they're trying to humanize Trump. But
I don't even like Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to hang out with Bill Maher either.
Yeah.
But that is interesting.
That same kind of dynamic. He assumed he was going to hate him. He was like, okay, well, I still hate him, but
Yeah.
And then after that, they got into like a big back and forth because Trump's like, hey, you came and because he was still critical of him. He's like, you came and we had a great time. Yeah.
Well, and that is true. That is true. I think that there's oftentimes, and I hate this aspect of it, but there's the politician of the person, and then there's the person behind the politician.
Yeah, yeah.
And those can be different people.
Right.
Those can be different people. I still like to think they're like I would not enjoy hanging out with this. What was it? He said recently? He goes, yeah, I like hanging out with losers. This is like a quote.
Yeah.
By the president. He said, I like hanging out with losers who are not as successful as me, so they can't brag about their success, and I can brag about mine. Something along those lines, and it's just like, hey man, to each their own. Real quick to summarize. The legislation is about so much more than proof of citizenship. The voter roll issue and the purging of the voter rolls and purging people from voter rolls within the time frame that does not allow for them to even go and get back in compliance to be put back on the voter rolls to be able to vote in the upcoming election. That is the concern. And I think that is what Republicans are actually focused on. Even if they're making this about the voter or the proof of citizenship, what's obvious to me is that they're about to go into. I mean, Josh, Mar-a-Lago got flipped by a Democrat.
Right. Yeah.
Like Mar-a-Lago is now Trump is now represented.
Crazy. Yeah.
Well, it's not crazy to me at all.
No, it's not. Like, it's the writing on the wall. For me.
It's the writing on the wall. Like, but you would think that they would be doing more to try to improve the position that they're going into in the midterms, and it seems to me like they're doing everything but that.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting themselves in a deeper and deeper hole. This DHS shutdown that they tried to blame on Democrats, it's like, guys, like, I mean, be honest here, Josh. Democrats have said, we want reforms to ICE.
That sounds like my ex.
Democrats have said, we want reforms to ICE.
Yeah.
They said they want body cameras. They don't want them to wear masks. They want them to have some sort of identifying badge or something. And they want them to stop with the warrantless searches. They want them to have more than an administrative warrant. They want them to have a judicial warrant signed by a judge if they're going to go into your house and violate your Fourth Amendment rights. None of those things seem that ridiculous to me.
No.
I get the masks.
Yeah.
They're doing a dangerous job. They don't want to be doxxed. Whatever. Okay?
Yeah, I mean,
I get that.
Here's what you could do with that. You could just put, like, stricter penalties for, and they're probably already in place, like, for, like, stalking or doxing a government employee. There's probably
I'm sure that it's already on the books.
A stricter, like,
yeah,
penalty for it. I mean, you know, it's like you may have to. A few ICE agents might have to sacrifice their well-being for a month or something.
Yeah, but here's the deal with that, right?
Until somebody gets prosecuted and they're able to publicize it.
Okay, but here's the deal with that. Every single ICE agent within the airports right now does not have a mask on.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
They don't have masks on.
Yeah.
So if it's that big of an issue,
yeah,
why do they not have masks on in the airports?
No, I absolutely agree.
Like,
I think
what they're asking for does not seem that ridiculous.
No, yeah, there's some easy things that it's like, it's that old adage of they just don't want to give them a win. When it's like, hey, everyone can, we talked about it, I think our first podcast, you don't have to compromise. Everyone can get what they want.
Yeah, everybody get a little bit.
Yeah, everyone gets what they want. Like, they should have body cams. That's insane.
Every other law enforcement entity out there is wearing body cameras for the most part.
Yeah, because it can also prove that they didn't do anything.
Well, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. And so, like, I don't really understand it, but to try to blame this on Democrats, it's like y'all have control of the White House, the Senate, and the House, and let's just throw the Supreme Court in there and call it what it is.
Right, right.
I mean, and y'all are blaming the party that like has none of that.
Right.
That doesn't make sense, and quite frankly, it's not going to play well.
Yeah.
Come the midterms.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm Republican, and it don't play well to me. I'm like, come on, like this don't look good. Like I'm just like, well, I mean, what they're saying, oh, it's the Democrats' fault, but what they're really saying is, oh, you just need to give us the votes we need. Like, what's your problem? And just give us the votes we need.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's what gets back to the Save America Act, because if it was just about funding TSA, or even just about funding ICE or DHS in general, well, I'll say let's leave ICE out of it, because Democrats have none of the proposals that they put forth fund ICE or CBP.
Yeah.
Right? But Republicans had an agreement that they took to the president.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not signing that. I want the Save America Act in there too. And what that has to do with TSA agents who are going now on their without a second paycheck or third paycheck, I don't know.
Well, it's his only leverage, right? And that, I mean, that's obvious to me. It's like his only leverage. You can't give up his only leverage. It's goofy though. It's like it makes you look bad.
They
So,
can't pass it in the Senate.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like this is his only leverage, and it's like, but it's like it's a shaky leverage, and it's like at some point, like I always think back to, I'm like, if there was somebody that just did things logically, like if there was somebody in the, like the Democrats want all these things for ICE, if they're just like, hey man, you're right, they should have those things, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like just common like actual common sense things where they don't get tied up in this back and forth. Man, I feel like we could easily like all be united, like behind one idea.
The problem with being united is that then we get to actually realize who are the bastards that are causing all these problems.
True. True.
They don't want us to be united.
Yeah.
Let's just let's just admit that.
Yeah.
Us being united does not serve a specific core group of people's interests.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't. Us being united is a big problem. And again, I'll take it back to my man, George Washington. He talked about this. This was the dangers of political parties. These perceived differences. I mean, it's a big problem. And when we're this divided, foreign influence gets to seep in, taking advantage of the situation. There's a lot of smart people very early on that thought about some of this stuff. And here we are making these mistakes. My hope is this. My hope is that we get through this period that we're in. It's going to probably get a lot worse before it gets better. I think the closer we get to the midterm elections, the more chaotic this is going to get. The president's going to because this shouldn't be political at all. But there's going to be some people who could potentially go to jail after this is all said and done.
Yeah.
That just is what it is. That just is what it is. Now, we still got the Epstein files that are lingering out there. I read an article just today that there is more evidence that corroborates claims made by the accuser that accused the president of sexual assault.
Yeah.
This stuff isn't going away. Thomas Massie has all but said he's going to be the guy. I'm not going to let this go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's no surprise to me that there's absolutely no way that the president's going to do whatever he can in his power to make sure that Democrats don't flip the House and the Senate. Because they've even said this. You're going to immediately see impeachment proceedings.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see where it goes. Again, folks, I encourage you, if you want to come on and have a conversation with Josh and I, please do. Let me know. Elections, this is something that I've decided I'm going to make a big focus of mine moving forward, because we can't spend all of our time focusing on every single thing, every chaotic happening that comes from the administration. I mean, it's too much.
Yes.
It's just it's time to drive myself insane, man.
Too many ways, like pulling us different ways. You know? But like you said when we were on the phone, I think that's the intent, though. Like
the chaos is the strategy. Absolutely. Do we have any other questions out there? We got a few more minutes. Any questions? Going once, going twice. Mr. Sellers, you've been like you still out there? Is he still at Mr.
I don't know. Maybe.
Thank y'all for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's never lost on us that every time we do this and you take time out of your evening to spend it with us, it's very humbling. We might not agree on everything that's taking place today, but the fact that you're here and you're part of the conversation with us is the most important thing to us. Josh, I'm sure you agree with that.
I do. I agree.
So thank y'all. Again, I think the goal is to move forward. We're going to be doing these 8:30 Monday.
Yep, Mondays.
And so if you got any questions, let us know. If there are any topics that you think you want to hear us talk about outside of the elections, can't promise you that we will, but we will definitely consider it. And if you haven't, make sure you go like us on Facebook, Substack, go like our YouTube page, and share our content if you think it's helpful. So with that, Josh,
have a good Easter.
Easter's coming up. Yeah. Y'all have a good Easter. And thank you again. We'll see you next week.